Don't be suspicious.
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 Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious. Don't be suspicious.
Hey guys, today marks the around 500 plus days of me being caffeine free. I started this in January 2020. Now prior to this, I'd say my daily diet back when I was 13 years old was Arizona sweet tea and Dr. Pepper. And I didn't really notice a problem with it at the time. Obviously, all the other kids were doing it. It's, not a big deal. When I turned about, I think 27, 28, I got a job as an armored car. And you pretty much just have to eat on the road, gas station food all day, every day. And I was going to the gym at the time. And so, they say that chocolate milk is good for you. It helps with recovery. So I'm like, okay, I'll have a chocolate milk. And it was good because it kept me awake on the road. So, that was that. But then maybe 4 days later, I noticed it wasn't enough. I wasn't getting the same effect. So as you can see, clearly I was developing a tolerance for it that didn't seem to be there when I was a young teenager. I could tell that was going to be a big problem. Other than that, some other reasons why I considered getting off caffeine was that my sleep schedule, which used to be good when I was younger, I would always wake up every 2 hours, sometimes every hour at night, which is absolutely terrible, very hard to function. And now I'd say, I wake up every 4 hours. So that's a little bit better. I think I've always had insomnia, but I'll happily take every 4 hours than every 2 hours during the night. Growing up, I also saw that my dad had high blood pressure, and he actually still does today. I think he went to the hospital maybe like 3 days ago for high blood pressure. And of course, things like that, they are genetic. And so I thought, well, if I, nip this in the bud right now, I may not have to worry about it later. So kind of like seeing all the medications, all the pills my dad has to take was kind of a wake-up call for me that, yeah, if I'm already at a risk for high blood pressure, then I should probably cut caffeine out of the equation. As far back as 6 years ago, I do remember having arrhythmia, or a heartbeat arrhythmia, which is kind of like when your heart beats out of time. Just randomly, my heart would beat out of time. So I'd be doing something and I'd have to stop and be like, whoa, that was not right. That heartbeat was not normal. And granted, it really occurred more frequently as I got older. So as a young guy, yeah, I had it once a year, but then it was becoming way more common once I hit like 27, 28 years old. And I can only imagine probably the years I'd been on caffeine had a large impact in that scenario. Also, when I got older, I tend to have higher levels of lethargy. I just had no motivation to progress. Literally, probably the worst days was just, well, I'm going to go to work and make money and then buy something because it'll make me feel better, and then repeat. Not really a good outlook to have on life, but I couldn't really help it. That was just how it seemed like to me. Now I can't say that that's because of the caffeine, but it seemed very routine, and that I really wasn't trying to do anything with my life. And yes, caffeine gives you energy, but what I felt like is that it was very unfocused energy. It would just be completely random and wasted on things that could have been used to improve my life. It would be like, oh, well, here's a burst of energy here, a burst of energy there, and then it didn't do anything as a general whole for my life. It was very unfocused, very misdirected bursts of energy, which is, I think it's about as useless as not having it at all. I also had a lot more frequent headaches, probably about as far back as like 22, 23. Being off caffeine, at least in the last year and a half, I don't think I've ever had a headache, except April 2020, but that's because I got COVID, and that was literally it. I was better in 2 days. It felt like I'd gone to the gym, but I hadn't gone to the gym, and I had no energy. Like I had to sleep the whole day. But other than that, I'd say those are probably the main reasons why. At least that's the main things that I saw and I noticed that I don't experience at all anymore. Now, in regards to quitting caffeine or being caffeine free, there's really only two main methods that you want to consider. The first is the tapering method, which I am a big fan of. I think that's going to work for a majority of addictions. However, I do understand that that might not work for a severe addiction. That's kind of a different animal, and so I think most healthcare professionals will actually suggest the cold turkey method. Now, I am not a fan of that, but I can understand that that would work for people that have a severe addiction, just because they're almost so far gone that they need something drastic to come back to normal levels. So, when we talk about addiction removal, there's two major components. The first is homeostasis, and the second is going to be withdrawal. So homeostasis is the body's ability to adapt to something pretty darn quickly. If you never had caffeine, you adapt to that pretty quickly. I'd probably get sick if I accidentally had caffeine again, Now, homeostasis can do that in every scenario. So if you just started nicotine, if you just started caffeine, if you just started things like that, your body will adapt to that as well. And of course, the idea of addiction is that the first hit you get of it, caffeine, nicotine, whatever, it will never be like the first time because you create a tolerance to it. And so then you think, right? You think you just need to get more to get the same effect. And homeostasis is a blessing and a curse. It obviously gets you addicted to stuff, but if you use it correctly, you can also use it to get off your addiction. Now, withdrawal, this is pretty much the number one thing that causes people to relapse. Withdrawal is when you immediately take away all of your addiction, your body will immediately suffer drastic effects. Because remember homeostasis, your body got used to that. That was its normal. You take away its normal, now it's panicking. It's going crazy and it's making you feel terrible, trying to convince you to relapse, to go back to your addiction. So the way that I think it works in regards to stopping any addiction is that we want to make homeostasis and withdrawal work for us instead of against us. And in regards to the tapering method, what you're doing is, so here's what I did, right? At the time, I had a daily diet of Arizona sweet tea and Dr. Pepper, and that's every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? So when I started, I said, okay, I know my normal right now is Dr. Pepper every day, 3 times a day. So for 1 month, I'm only going to have 2 Dr. Peppers, and then there's going to be 1 Sprite, and that's in the middle for lunch, right? And I'll do that for 1 month, okay? This works in line with homeostasis because my body's, it's not going to notice. It's not going to notice, that's not enough of a change for my body to notice or to initiate withdrawal, right? So then a month goes by, and then my body gets used to that, and so it accepts that as the new normal. And the next month I go, okay, now I only get to have 1 Dr. Pepper and then 2 Sprites. So the Dr. Pepper's going to be in the middle for lunch. And I do that for 1 month. And once again, I didn't feel anything because through that month, my body just thought, oh, this must be normal. So there was no problem, no withdrawal. And so eventually, in the next month, I was able to go to 3 Sprites. And again, I felt nothing. And then for the months that went on, I would just go to Powerade. So it would be like, 2 Sprites, 1 Powerade for 1 month, and then 1 Sprite, 2 Powerades in a month. And then finally, as I'm here now, I change it over to water. So there would be 3 Powerades, and then next month it's going to be 2 Powerades, 1 water, and then I kept going, and then now I just drink water. Only one time I won't drink water is if I'm at a restaurant, just because it's it's a special occasion, so I might get like a Sprite or something. But other than that, it's mostly water. That's most of the liquid that I'm drinking now. In most case scenarios, only special occasions I'll get like a Sprite, a strawberry Sprite or something. But for the most part, I've pretty much changed from Dr. Pepper to water. It was all by the tapering method, the weaning off method, which I guess I'm biased because it worked for me, but I like that. If your addiction's not that severe, I think the tapering method is probably the best way. It uses homeostasis and withdrawal for us instead of against us. Now, as I said before, that's not to say that the cold turkey has no place. It does have a place. I think it works for people that have a severe addiction because they're so far down in the addiction, so far deep in the addiction, it's very hard to climb back out. And so sometimes you need something extreme like that. And of course, the withdrawal is going to be terrible because, you take the drug all right away. So of course the withdrawal is absolutely dreadful. The cold turkey, I don't particularly agree with that, but I can see that it has a place. It's going to work for people that have a severe addiction, very deep in the addiction. Sometimes you need something drastic to get out, or at least to initiate a change. I'm sure there have been cases where they've tried the tapering method with people that have severe addictions, and it maybe showed little to no progress. So when deciding which one you want to do, you have to ask yourself, are you strong enough that you can have good streaks and then relapses, day by day, and that doesn't discourage you? Then cold turkey probably work for you. But if that doesn't work for you and you have to see some kind of progress, then I think the tapering method would be more appropriate for you. And it also depends how resistant you are to withdrawal, because like I said, the cold turkey, you're going to get the full effect of the withdrawal. Whereas with the tapering, if you take it slow enough, I didn't feel anything at all. It was almost, in my subjective case, too easy. Another thing that can help you is that you can also trick your mind. So obviously when I was getting off the Dr. Pepper, I'd be like, oh, well, I wish I had Dr. Pepper, but I didn't have any. And so what I would get is a mug root beer. And at the time, well, now you can, but at the time it wasn't. You can get A&W root beer because that's caffeine free too now. And so if I really wanted to have a Dr. Pepper, I would just get one of those because it was like, well, it doesn't have caffeine, so my goal is still going, but it tricks my mind like I'm still having Dr. Pepper, which obviously I'm not. And chocolate was another thing too. Obviously, I liked chocolate back then, not anymore, but chocolate has cocoa powder, it has caffeine, and so, well, what doesn't have it? But it's kind of like chocolate. White chocolate, actually. White chocolate is kind of like chocolate, but it doesn't have caffeine. So anytime I had, urges like that, I would just trick myself and go, well, here you go. Here's a discount Dr. Pepper. Here's a discount chocolate bar. It's not the same, obviously, but it worked. As long as I wasn't getting any caffeine, that worked for me. Now we can talk about the benefits of being caffeine free. Now these are largely subjective. Everyone is different. Everyone has a different life experience. So it's not to say that you'll get the same thing. You might not get any of it, but you also may not have had all my problems. So of course this is going to be dependent on individual basis by basis. The first thing is that I never got a crash. Of course, that's probably the most common one. You get your energy, it's unfocused, and it just goes everywhere, then you crash. And you're lazy, you don't want to do anything. I don't crash anymore. I wake up at 4:45 a.m. every day, including the weekend. I go to sleep. It used to be 9 p.m. Now I'm sleeping earlier. It's about 8:40 maybe. So that's good. Yeah, I have energy. It's real energy. It's not fake energy that's going to cause me a crash later. It's real energy throughout the whole day that I have now. Another thing about caffeine is that it actually increases cortisol. Cortisol is responsible for stress. It actually makes you more stressed, and stress is never good in any situation. You always want to reduce stress as much as possible. It's going to make you die faster. It's going to increase any kind of problems you already have. And so the fact that caffeine induces that naturally is a very good reason for you to consider quitting. Another benefit I think we all can agree on is that it increases your finances, right? Coffee, soda, whatever the case is, that all costs money. If you bring your own water bottle, have your own water, and let's say that the caffeine is, I don't know, 250, 275, especially if you get it more than once a day, that's already $1,100 back in your pocket. You gonna tell me there ain't something you want that's $1,100? You ain't got bills to pay? That's good. It's good. That's money that you put back in your pocket, and you can apply it to anything else in your life to improve your quality of life. Now, for the feminine presenting genders out there, it's actually shown that caffeine increases estrogen in feminine presenting genders. And that's not good because that's typically responsible for increasing ovarian and breast cancer. You also can have pregnancy issues, particularly miscarriage. Now, I'm sure if you go to a clinic, they tell you this already, but I just figured, since I'm talking about the problems of caffeine, well, there you go. So if you want to have a child, or you already at risk for breast or ovarian cancer, then it might be a very good idea to reduce, but certainly eliminate caffeine entirely from your diet. Also, caffeine has a tendency to interfere with collagen production. Now, what collagen is that it's kind of your ability, your skin's ability for elasticity. So it's like, I guess you could say it makes you look younger, when like skin starts to sag, type of things like that. That's because collagen production is being interfered with, and the caffeine does that. It actually messes with that, halts that, kind of messes up how it's supposed to be done. So I guess in a pseudoscience way, caffeine can increase your aging. Maybe. That's a little pseudoscience, but you get my point. So that was my experience with being caffeine free for about 510, 520 days. Like other life changes, I will say that it didn't seem like it was a big deal to me. But also, 3 Dr. Peppers a day is not the same as 3 rock stars or 3 Red Bulls every day. So clearly my caffeine tolerance wasn't as high as I thought it was. Maybe that's why it seemed like the life change wasn't that big of a deal for me. But as you can see with various benefits, various reasons why someone want to quit caffeine, I think it's a pretty good idea to at least reduce it. If you don't want to quit, that's fine, but you should certainly consider reducing it, right? Especially since it's become the norm for a lot of people. If you ask me now what would happen if I had a candy bar, literally I think I'd just be up at 3 a.m. I don't really think it would ruin my life. I think it's just like I would just be up, for one time. So it doesn't seem like a big change to me. And other videos I've seen, it kind of didn't seem like a big deal to me too. But again, everyone's different. You may have a better reason to be off caffeine, or you may have no reason to be off caffeine. Yeah, I don't see myself ever going back to caffeine. That's why I titled this Caffeine Free. Like, I literally have no interest in chocolate or caffeine or anything. So this is the changes that I noticed in 500 days. Unless something magical happens, I think this is pretty much it for me. I don't expect to see anything in 1,000 days or 2,000 days. I think I've pretty much gotten about all the benefits I can. But if you have any questions about being caffeine free or trying to reduce or get off it, you can always leave questions, comments, that's fine, or message me. But if you have tried caffeine, or if you had experience with trying to caffeine detox or caffeine free, I'd love to hear about it. Otherwise, you guys take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.